What happens when loyalty collides with betrayal? In one of the most emotional moments in the eminence in Shadow, Alpha is forced to fight John Smith, the very person she trusts more than anyone. Believing that Shadow has abandoned Shadow Garden, Alpha experiences heartbreak, confusion, and despair during this unforgettable battle. In this video, we'll break down the full story behind Alpha's battle against John Smith, why it was so emotional, and what it revealed about Alpha's devotion to Shadow. Spoiler warning for the eminence in Shadow anime and light novel. What if the person you admired most suddenly appeared to betray everything you believed in? For Alpha, this nightmare became reality during her heartbreaking battle against John Smith in the eminence in Shadow. This wasn't just another fight filled with flashy sword techniques and overwhelming power. It was a clash of emotions, trust, and loyalty. Behind every strike was a painful misunderstanding that nearly shattered Alpha's faith in the person she respected above all else. To understand why this battle was so emotional, we first need to understand Alpha herself. Among all the members of Shadow Garden, Alpha is the closest to Shadow. She was the very first person he saved from possession. At a time when everyone else saw her as cursed and worthless, Shadow gave her a new purpose and a new life. From that moment onward, Alpha devoted herself completely to his vision. She built Shadow Garden around his teachings, gathered powerful allies, and dedicated every moment of her life to fighting the cult of Diablos. To Alpha, Shadow wasn't simply a leader. He was the person who changed her destiny. That's why the John Smith incident hurt her more than anyone else. During the major corporate alliance conflict, a mysterious masked man named John Smith suddenly appeared. His actions began causing chaos throughout the economy, destroying powerful organizations and creating confusion everywhere he went. What Alpha didn't know was that John Smith was actually Sitka Janu operating under another identity. As the situation escalated, Shadow Garden discovered evidence suggesting that John Smith was working against them. Even worse, the clues seemed to imply that Shadow himself might be involved. For Alpha, this made absolutely no sense. The man she admired had always been several steps ahead of everyone else. There had to be a reason for his actions. But as more events unfolded, doubt slowly crept into her heart. When Alpha finally confronted John Smith, the emotional weight of the situation became overwhelming. She wasn't fighting an enemy. She was fighting someone connected to the person she trusted most. Throughout the confrontation, Alpha desperately searched for answers. She wanted to understand why everything was happening. Why did it seem like Shadow Garden had been abandoned? Why were their plans being destroyed? Why was Shadow acting in ways she couldn't comprehend? For perhaps the first time in the story, Alpha looked genuinely lost. A confident and composed leader of Shadow Garden suddenly appeared vulnerable. As the battle intensified, Alpha unleashed her incredible swordsmanship and magical power. Yet despite her strength, she found herself completely overwhelmed. John Smith effortlessly countered her attacks and demonstrated a level of skill that left her shocked. Every exchange widened the gap between them. But the physical defeat wasn't what hurt Alpha the most. The real pain came from what she believed these actions meant. In her eyes, it looked as though Shadow had abandoned Shadow Garden. The organization she built with absolute faith seemed meaningless. The mission she dedicated her life to suddenly felt uncertain. For a brief moment, Alpha experienced something she had rarely felt before: despair. One of the most heartbreaking parts of this fight is seeing Alpha's unwavering loyalty turned against her. Everything she does comes from trust. Everything she sacrifices comes from faith. And during this battle, that faith appears to be breaking apart. The normally fearless Alpha begins questioning herself, questioning Shadow Garden, and even questioning the future she had worked so hard to create. Yet despite her pain, she never stops believing completely. Deep down, she still wants to trust Shadow. She still hopes there is an explanation. She still believes the man who saved her would never truly betray them. This is what makes the battle so powerful. It's not a fight between enemies. It's a fight between misunderstanding and trust. Eventually, the truth is revealed. Shadow never intended to abandon Shadow Garden. As usual, his actions were driven by his own bizarre goals and unpredictable way of doing things. The apparent betrayal was never really betrayal at all. But by the time the misunderstanding is resolved, Alpha has already endured one of the most painful moments of her life. The battle against John Smith revealed a side of Alpha that fans rarely get to see. Beneath her strength, intelligence, and leadership lies someone capable of immense emotional pain. Someone whose loyalty is so deep that the mere possibility of betrayal is enough to break her heart. And that's why Alpha versus John Smith remains one of the most emotional fights in the Eminence and Shadow. It wasn't the strongest battle. It wasn't the longest battle. But it was the battle that exposed Alpha's feelings more than any other moment in the series. A fight where every sword strike carried heartbreak. A fight where trust was tested to its limit. And a fight that proved just how much Shadow truly means to Alpha. What do you think about Alpha's battle against John Smith? Was it the saddest moment in the Eminence and Shadow? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more anime lore and character analysis videos.